Hey man, the moment you pull back and the noise between you fades, something shifts inside her that she didn't expect. At first it feels like nothing changed. She tells herself you're just busy, just distracted, just having one of those days where your energy is elsewhere. She believes the dynamic is still under her control, that your presence is guaranteed, that she can take her time because you'll always be there waiting to reconnect the moment she feels ready. But as the hours turn into a quiet she never planned for, her mind begins to wander into uncomfortable territory. She starts realizing that something is different, not because you're angry, not because you're punishing her, but because your absence suddenly feels heavier than she imagined it would. In that silence, a question forms in her mind, one she never had to ask before. Why isn't he reaching out? And it's that question that begins the unraveling process. Women are used to being pursued, checked on, validated, reassured. They're used to having the emotional upper hand, to knowing exactly where a man stands because he openly expresses it through effort. But when a man who once offered consistency withdraws without explanation, her sense of certainty cracks. That certainty was her safety net, the thing she relied on even when she acted distant or indifferent. When that pattern breaks, she feels a loss of control that hits deeper than she wants to admit. She might pretend not to notice at first. She'll continue acting normal, replying slowly, keeping her tone neutral, maintaining the same rhythm she had before. But internally, something starts feeling off. She scans her last conversations with you in her mind, hunting for clues she might have missed. She starts wondering if she said something wrong, pushed too far, came off too cold. The silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back all the moments she took lightly. The ignored messages, the delayed responses, the lukewarm efforts. She begins to replay them with new meaning, because now the behavior she thought wouldn't affect you suddenly feels like it did. Then comes the phase she won't talk about, not even to her closest friends, the curiosity phase. This is where she starts checking her phone more often, not because she's desperate, but because she's unsettled. She expected you to return on your usual timeline. She expected the pattern to continue, but your absence breaks her rhythm, and in that disruption, her mind begins to lean toward you in ways it didn't before. She wonders what you're doing. She wonders whether someone else has your attention. She wonders whether she overestimated her influence on your emotions, and those small wonders grow into quiet concerns. If more time passes, that concern deepens into self-reflection. She starts comparing your old behavior with your new behavior, and the contrast reveals something she wasn't prepared to confront. The truth that your attention wasn't obligated. She believed your consistency meant permanence, but now she's seeing it was a choice, and choices can change. That realization stings because it forces her to confront something she tried to ignore. You were giving more than she acknowledged. Your effort created emotional comfort for her, and now that comfort is missing. This is the shift most men never get to see. The moment she stops analyzing you and starts analyzing herself, she thinks about how she acted. She thinks about how she responded. She thinks about the things she said casually that might not have landed the way she expected. She remembers times where you waited, where you gave the benefit of the doubt, where you carried the conversation, where you tried to bring closeness that she wasn't fully ready to accept. And for the first time, she sees her own contribution to the distance forming between you. Then something even more surprising happens. She begins to feel the weight of your absence physically. It hits her when she unlocks her phone and there's no message from you. It hits her when she sees something funny and instinctively thinks of sending it, but remembers that the dynamic changed. It hits her when she's about to open her social media and wonders if you're watching her stories. She becomes hyper aware of the space you once filled. The silence becomes a reminder of how much you gave and how quiet life feels without that energy. Once that realization settles in, a subtle panic begins to rise. She won't show it, but she feels it. She wonders if you've accepted the distance she created. She wonders if you've emotionally detached. She wonders if she underestimated your capacity to move on. This is where the tables turn without a single word being spoken, because now she feels what you once felt, unpredictability. She feels the instability she created, and she begins to feel afraid of losing the attention she assumed would always be there. That fear doesn't show up as anger or desperation. It shows up as overthinking. She starts questioning whether she misread your dynamic entirely. She wonders if you were more valuable than she realized. She wonders if she relied too much on the idea that you'd keep trying. This confusion pushes her into a place she hasn't been before, emotional vulnerability. And ironically, the vulnerability she avoided giving you now becomes the vulnerability she feels because of you. Silence has a way of revealing truths that words can't, and what your silence shows her is that you're not tied to her behavior. You're not desperate. You're not emotionally dependent on her responses. You're not waiting for breadcrumbs. You're not living in anticipation of her decisions. And that is exactly what makes her feel something she never felt when you were trying. Respect. Real, undeniable respect. Once respect enters, interest follows. She starts to wonder who you are without the version of you she was used to. She wonders if this is temporary or if you fully shifted into a different version of yourself. She wonders what changed inside you to make you step back. You become a mystery again, and mystery is the birthplace of attraction. She can't predict your next move anymore, and unpredictability ignites curiosity. This curiosity pulls her attention toward you without her choosing it consciously. She finds herself imagining what you're doing with your time. She thinks about the people who might be around you now. She considers the possibility that someone else may have entered your life. She hates that thought, even if she won't admit it. But the discomfort of that idea pushes her towards something she didn't expect, the desire to reconnect. Before she even sends a message or makes a move, she will test the connection from a distance. She'll post something subtle, hoping to trigger a reaction. She'll open your stories to see if you view them. She'll drop hints online, trying to see if your silence is genuine or strategic. But when you stay composed, when you refrain from reacting, she gets her answer. You have detached from the old version of the dynamic. This triggers something deeper, a sense of loss. Not loss of the relationship, but loss of control. Women rarely fear losing access to a man. They fear losing influence. And when your silence remains firm, she realizes she no longer has the ability to shift your mood, disrupt your peace, or pull you back emotionally. That realization cuts deeper than anything you could have said. At this point, she starts missing the version of you she took lightly, the version that cared, the version that reached out, the version that tried. But the man she is missing no longer exists, because once a man chooses himself, he doesn't go backward, and that evolution hits her harder than any breakup ever could. She'll remember the jokes you made, the warmth you showed, the little moments where you listened more deeply than anyone else. She'll feel the absence of that emotional presence. She'll miss the energy you used to bring into her life, and the silence continues, doing its work, reminding her of everything she didn't appreciate when she had access to it. Then comes the uncomfortable part. The comparison. She will compare every man around her to the man you've become. She'll see how quickly others respond, how easily others chase, how predictably others behave, and she'll notice that none of them make her feel the way your new calmness does. Your distance has elevated you in her mind, not because you're playing games, but because you're demonstrating self-respect. She might try to act uninterested, but her actions will betray her. She'll talk about you more than she intends to. She'll think about texting you but hesitate. She'll replay the last moments between you, searching for a sign that you still care. And with every passing hour of silence, her inner conflict grows stronger. When she finally reaches the point where she can't pretend anymore, she'll start giving small signals. A like, a subtle comment, a random message, a soft attempt to reopen the door. She won't jump in directly. She'll test the waters, because now she feels something she never expected to feel with you. Uncertainty about where she stands. If you respond gently but firmly, without eagerness, without overcompensation, without reverting to the old version of yourself, she'll feel something powerful, admiration. Because now she sees that your detachment wasn't spite, it was self-respect. And self-respect is more attractive than anything you could ever say. The most shocking part for her is that your silence didn't push her away, it pulled her closer emotionally, not because you manipulated her, but because you broke the pattern of predictable devotion she had grown used to. When a man becomes unavailable in a healthy, grounded way, it activates something deeper in a woman, the desire to reconnect with someone she underestimated. She will eventually reach a moment of truth, a moment where she realizes she has only two options left. Either she steps up or she loses access to the man you've become. And this moment is uncomfortable for her because she never expected to be in this position with you. She once felt certain she had you, now she isn't so sure. And that insecurity pushes her towards something she once refused to give, effort. It's in this phase that she begins to show sides of herself she kept hidden before: vulnerability, softness, reflection, accountability. She becomes more careful with her words, more intentional with her messages, more appreciative of your energy, because now she sees the reality she ignored. You are not replaceable, and your presence was not guaranteed. Your silence didn't create distance, it revealed truth. It exposed how much she relied on your effort. It uncovered how deeply she valued your presence, even when she didn't show it. And now, she finally feels what you felt. The longing, the uncertainty, the fear of losing something real. Only now the roles have reversed, and she's the one wondering what comes next. So here's the real truth, brother. When you step back, not out of malice but out of self-respect, you're teaching her something she never learned before, that the man she once took lightly is a man she now has to earn. And once a man reaches that level within himself, everything in the dynamic transforms. Not because you wanted to hurt her, but because you finally learned how to protect yourself. And she feels every bit of that shift, quietly, deeply, undeniably.